Welcome to revolution.social, a podcast about the future of social media.
Hi, Rabble.
Hi, Alice.
It's great to be back. So earlier this year, you and Kara Swisher were both featured in this 4-part documentary on CNN called Twitter Breaking the Bird. And it was a great reminder that each of you, while having very different perspectives, were looking out across the last 20 years of social media and have your own set of experiences and thoughts about it. So what made you choose Kara to be our second guest on the podcast?
I chose Kara because she has insight into the history of these social media companies. She has been covering them from the moment they were founded through the point at which they go through IPOs, through the point that it becomes massive multi-billion-dollar companies. And she understands what the founders were going through and has insight about their motivations. And we don't always agree on what was happening or the motivations or the solutions to the problems, but she's someone who has seen this evolution through many of these social media companies.
Absolutely. And Kara is well known for speaking her mind and being clear about her points of view and opinions on things. And we'll definitely hear more of that in the conversation today. So let's take a listen.
Thank you so much, Kara, for joining me on my podcast, Revolution Social. This is sort of a new podcast where I am interviewing the people who have been building the social media platforms and looking at what happened to them, how they got built, how we ended up in the situation of the world we are in today, understanding the conflicts that went behind them, and then what can we build, like how do we build something better in the future? And I know that you have seen all of these platforms from the moments at which they were founded to where they ended up today. And so I'm really excited to have you on, and I would love for you to share some of your insight on how did we get here?
Okay. What do you want to know?
Well, so the first thing I want to know is you have looked at the history of people that went from these idealistic founders of companies, including Twitter, where I was as an engineer, and others, to these sort of rich billionaires. And it's transformed how they have power and how they view the world and what they're doing on it. And I'm wondering if you could talk sort of a little bit about that transition as you see people
I never thought they were idealistic. I thought they were.
You never thought they were idealistic?
No, I thought they were there to make money. I thought that was always there, or assemble power. So I'm sorry, I don't believe all the nonsense they would foist at me at the time. At the beginning, I didn't think they were trying to bring people together. I mean, that might have been a byproduct of what they did, but largely they wanted to be powerful and make money. That was always my impression of all of them, especially someone like Mark Zuckerberg, who didn't have an ounce of community-minded spirit in him, I don't think, to this day.
So for your perspective, it was all just spin that people were saying about what?
Well, just bullshit would be the word you're looking for. Yeah, it was. I mean, I wrote a story in the Wall Street Journal right at the beginning of basically the internet age in the 90s. And I did a story about things they say and what they actually mean. And one of them was, we're here to help the world. And I was like, it's sort of like the aliens in the Twilight Zone to serve man. It's a cookbook. I think that's the joke I made. They're not here to serve, they're here to serve man up for themselves. And so, there every now and then there was a kid, like the well people were interesting, if a little bit, crunchy. Certain people certainly saw it as a powerful mechanism for community. But largely those people were shoved by the wayside by the moneymakers. And everything they did was in order to become bigger. That was their, they're like the Borg, essentially.
And especially the case of Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, like he kept absorbing other companies.
Yes, and then carelessly growing, doing things, whether it was Beacon. Every single thing he did from the very earliest days to now is the same Mark Zuckerberg. Everyone's like, oh, he's changed. I'm like, not even slightly. He was always, sort of a rapacious entrepreneur who wanted to control everything and do as much as he can to have control of things right from the get-go, from the beginning of the formation of the company. He had full control. It's, I get that there's reasons for doing it, but if you can't be fired ever, that kind of says everything I need to know about you. if there's no accountability. He spent a lot of time lobbying against any kind of regulation. Constantly, I don't know how many times we have to be told, have this guy do something and then be like, I can't believe he did that. He's a constant information thief. That's what Walt Mossberg called him to me. And I agree. He's an information thief. That's how I look at him, but that's him. And then the Twitter, maybe he was a little more like touchy-feely about it, but Jack Dorsey's just as manic and murderous as Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know, I just is like, as much of a killer. I just think it's couched in all these ridiculous. I prefer Mark Zuckerberg, honestly, because Jack Dorsey was tiresome in his let's all meditate together crap that, he foisted on people. But I prefer just out and out the Jeff Bezoses and the Mark Zuckerbergs because I can see them come. I mean, they don't pretend they're not a hyena. That's what they are, essentially.
So given that they are who they are and they've used this system that we've got so effectively,
well, they built the system to their advantage. They built the system. Right. No, they took something that was created by the government and paid for by the U.S. taxpayer. And this goes back. It doesn't start. It begins with AOL and all those different things, all those companies, Microsoft. They took something that was created by the U.S. government and paid for by the taxpayer and then advantaged themselves and then made certain there were no regulations except for those that favor them. And so they got to benefit, for example, from Section 230, where they had no accountability. They had no ability to sue them. You couldn't sue them. Like, what industry in America can't you sue? Only one, right? And, for, normal things you can, but you certainly, if they did stock fraud or something like that, but for the products they make, that's a really sweet deal as far as I can tell.
I guess the reason I've been doing this work and doing the podcast is we have this situation where we've let the most financially and regulatorily aggressive people win and take over.
How do we let it? We didn't. It's not, again, it's putting it on us. These are rapacious people who are very interested in the bottom line and they're very interested in controlling. And so they pretend they're magicians, which they aren't. They don't care about safety because, as I always say, they've never felt unsafe a day in their lives. And they don't care about the damage they cause. And when you point it out to them, they get all pissy because they're victims, of course, because it's so fascinating. The richest people in the world are the biggest whiners. Like, oh, people don't like me. No, we don't like you. You're a rapacious information thief. Thank you. And you take our information. And they do everything possible to hide what they're doing. And they never are transparent. And they act like it's, these algorithms are magic. They're not magic. They're just, there's no different than they made a pharmaceutical drug or they made a car or anything else. But I can tell you when a car has a design problem, everyone goes to jail. Like, especially if it's hidden, or the cigarette manufacturers, they sat in front of Congress and lied, and then they paid the price through these enormous legal settlements. The airline manufacturers, chemical makers, there's nobody. The media, Rupert Murdoch had to pay $1 billion for sucking and purposely sucking, and he deserved to have to pay that. But Mark Zuckerberg doesn't. He's done more damage than almost anybody in history, I would say, of this country at least.
You mentioned they don't pay the consequences of it, or they don't see the consequences of it. And it's a group of founders that are mostly straight white men.
Yes, I've noticed
who are the least likely to face systems of abuse and least likely to face abuse online.
Right, exactly.
Now we have Blue Sky, which is built on a protocol, but also is founded and run by women.
Right.
Jay Graber and Rose, the COO. And I wonder if you've spent so much time talking to these founders.
It's the same, I don't know Jay very well. I don't know her at all, actually. But it's they've got their own problems on Blue Sky. They're a little bit tisky. That's the other side of it. You get a lot of like lectury people. Like the other day I was like, well, Elon Musk finally says something sensible, like about the bill. And everyone's like, how dare you side with him? I'm like, but he's right. Like, I'm sorry. Is it like you can't even Like he's on your side finally, and you're like, you won't take it because this guy's on your side. And so it's a little lectury, but that's okay. I can take it. It's better than what's going on over at Twitter, which is just a full scale, what I call it, a Nazi porn bar vibe. Blue sky is better. Like these systems aren't that complex. They're like people talking to each other, right? This has gone on since the beginning of time, like whether it's a fence or a telephone or whatever it happens to be. It is a better system because people have to behave better. And so it's a more pleasant system. Even I have to say Threads can be very pleasant, right? And so can Instagram and many. I mean, I know they all have faults. Same thing with Snapchat. But look, Snapchat's not a bad system. It's just, they have abuses. People can find drugs on there. There's lots of different abuses, but it's a little more curated. So I think that's what's happening is there's curation, and then they give people really easy tools to block people or to get rid of people. And that's just easy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I'd rather, if you're outside, you don't have to talk to, well, sometimes you do, but you mostly don't have to talk to people you don't like in your life, right? And you can avoid them, or you don't invite them to your house or whatever. And in this way, it's just sensible stuff, but I'd say that also on Reddit now. It used to be such a snake pit over there. And now they've done a little more curation to make it a better experience for people. Again, like we're not going to have Nazis here, okay? Whatever. I mean, and if you want to listen to Nazis, they're in there somewhere, but you have to like dig a little bit to find them, right? Or people you don't like, or things you don't agree with, but they're there and they're allowed to thrive on their own, but you don't have to see them. And a lot of the others are just built like, I used to say it's like a city that that say Mark Zuckerberg is the mayor of and the owner of. He's Pottersville. He's Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. And
we live in a company town.
Yeah, right, a company town. And he controls the food and the water and the streets and the buildings and the rents and everything. But he doesn't provide, electricity. He doesn't apply garbage pickup. He doesn't do good water delivery. He doesn't do policing. And he gets all the stuff. And so we're left in that terrible dystopian purge-like atmosphere. We're at and then he doesn't take responsibility for things that then happen, and he uses free speech as his shield, which is of course nonsense because he doesn't even understand what it means. He doesn't understand what the First Amendment means, and so they use it as a shield just to protect them because that's But it's like Trump doing that. He censors everything and then talks about the First Amendment.
Sure.
They're exhausting.
It's entirely hypocritical.
They're exhausting in their shamelessness, but they're shameless. So what do we want? I don't know what to say.
So we live in this company town. We have this world in which Meta in particular, but also
four or
Elon.
5 people on the planet are always on a Meta platform. Yeah, we do. And now he's trying to buy AI from all the other innovators because he doesn't have an innovative bone in his body. He just knows how to aggressively steal, essentially, or take. It's the same thing. He copied Snapchat over and over again. He copies everybody. Like, he had one original idea, the feed, but that wasn't really original either. But he did a good job at that.
The feed came from Twitter.
Yeah, the feed came from Twitter.
Facebook originally didn't have a feed.
Yeah,
you had to go to each person's profile.
He really did steal everything. He really is I used to call him the shoplifter, and I used to call Evan Spiegel, and he finally took on the name himself. Facebook's chief product officer was Evan Spiegel. Even Kevin Systrom admitted that, although he created something pretty cool. That was cool. That was actually fresh. Everybody knows what fresh is when they see it, right? And some of the stuff is not, again, it's not. To create a bulletin board is not a new thing. It's just new innovations on it, right? And that's what's interesting. And again, I'll tell you, I like Threads because I happen to like food videos, and it's like Instagram with text. And I find Instagram the way my feed is great, but my wife's feed is terrible on Threads because she doesn't.
Yeah, I see all of these people getting in arguments with turfs and things, and it's just super painful. Not me.
I'm not in that gang. I just watch food videos and hardware videos, and I'm very pleased with that.
You mentioned Kevin. I don't know if you remember, Kevin Systrom was our intern at Odeo and Twitter.
Oh, that's right. I wasn't there when he was that. But I like Kevin a lot. I like him a lot.
Yeah, he showed up one day and said, "I'm your intern." And we're like, "We don't have an internship program." And he's like, "No, but I'm your intern." And then he was amazing and he learned so much. He learned how to do it and then was able to do it when he did Instagram.
Right. But with no surprise that he despises Meta. You know what I mean? And left. But he's great. He's great. I thought he and, what's his name? Oh, God, I can't believe the other founder.
Mike Kruger.
Mike, right. Terrific guy. He was the technical person. I think they really captured lightning in a bottle, and everyone saw it instantly, including Jack Dorsey, by the way. So I think everybody could see that was kind of fresh. I mean, everyone was working around that idea of the photos, but they really nailed it, especially with those filters. And it was fun to use. It was fun and interesting to use. You be your own photographer. And again, they weren't the first, I don't think. I think there were other versions. I mean, I guess there were a couple different photo services, but they really did nail it, creating the social and the photo together. And of course, now video.
We're living in this company town. Mm-hmm. We have the owner of the town is the least socially aware and connected and responsible person in our digital town here.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You've watched thousands of startups come and go and had all these people pitch it. And you've watched the platforms that took off and ended up working. How do we get out of this town? Like
we don't.
What?
We don't. Why would we? What would cause it? I mean, he's only the stock is at an all-time high. He can do whatever. The only thing that would stop him was the government, and so then he wanders over to the Trump's inauguration in order to stop it. And, he hasn't been terrifically successful with Trump, largely because he's unlikable, and most people don't like him. And neither does Trump. You can tell. I mean, I think Trump genuinely liked Elon. I do, until he didn't. But I could see that. You could, if you knew them. Well, pre-Elon losing his mind, was actually quite funny and interesting, personable, and then until he wasn't. But Mark has no excuse. I mean, there's all kinds of mental issues and drug issues with Elon, but Mark has zero excuse. And so I think he's trying to curry favor, but it's not. I think Bezos is having a better time of that, and Google's trying, but it's they don't like Google so much either. They're not doing anything to help Google necessarily in these trials, but it's early in the game. They might. I
don't wish them luck in currying favor with the Trump administration.
No, I don't think it will
manipulating
work.
The rules.
I don't think it will work. I fundamentally don't think Trump likes Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know what else to say. I could see him. I see them when they're near each other, and he's like, ugh. And in a lot of ways, look, I don't like Trump, but he has a good sense of people. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And before he became whatever he is now, he was somewhat funny, somewhat self-deprecating, and then of course that's changed. But
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the experience of watching Elon take over Twitter. Mm-hmm. I think, like you, was cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, me too.
That he might do a good job at running Twitter.
Yeah, I did,
and might do a better job than what had been there before. And obviously, it has become a shit show.
Yeah. He and I went back and forth when he was buying it, and I was pretty like, well, he's certainly got the money, he's got the interest, he loves the product, he's innovative, that's for sure. He used the product really. I thought he did a good job of using the product. And oddly enough, I had interviewed Jack Dorsey on Twitter many, many years before that, and I said, who's your favorite user? And he said, Elon Musk. It was sort of out of nowhere. I was like, And then I started paying attention to what he was doing. So I thought he might do a good job. And I did tend to agree with him on some of not that I thought the Twitter people had done what they accused them of doing in the Twitter files, which was such a big zero and nothing burger. They were just doing their jobs. They had a point of view about curation, right? And he just didn't agree with it. That's all he had to say is, I don't agree. I see why they might do it, but I have a different view. And leave it at that. Instead, he had to demonize them. And I thought that they were trying very hard to protect certain people who were getting terribly abused on that platform. So I really do admire that. But one of the things that they did is lots of stuff got caught in the net, right? When they were trying to pull in the shitty stuff. I thought I didn't like the Babylon Bee. I didn't think they're funny. Like, that's just my problem with them. They're unfunny and stupid. But it was just a joke, right? And I know it's a mean joke about the, it was a Surgeon General or whatever. Anyway, I thought it was stupid, but taking him down seemed a little much. I was like, can't they just be stupid and we make fun of them? Like that kind of thing. And in the case of comics, even if I don't agree with them, like Dave Chappelle, say why you don't agree with them. Like, I'm like, an hour on trans people? Really? You nasty prick. Like, I feel like with comics or comedy or satire, you have to give a really wide berth. And it was petty and mean and cruel. But same thing with J.K. Rowling. Just let her go. Then we can look at her and not read her books anymore, that kind of thing. And so there's a difference between, say, a Gamergate where it's really targeting people. And it is, it suggests violence and that. But instantly he started suggesting violence, right? Like then I was like, wait a minute, there is a line. And, when he did the Paul Pelosi thing, that's where, one of the many times he lost me. But, linking it with a gay love triangle, and this guy just got the shit beat out of him because of a crazy person who liked conspiracy. The whole thing was so irresponsible. It
was absolutely crazy.
It was irresponsible, and maybe he should have been allowed to say it, I guess, but he has a bigger, he always had a problem understanding for some reason he would attack journalists and they would get flamed by his stands. And then he'd be like, free speech. And I'm like, yeah, but you have more speech than other people, right? Like, that really bothered me forever, actually, with him. He never understood the impact, or he did understand, he didn't care. And so I thought he'd be good. I thought he could be good. But then instantly, it was, especially when he was trying to squirrel out of the deal, it was all such lies. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, you did say you're going to buy as much. Just either just put up or shut up, essentially. And then when he tried to then he did the populist, then he tried to screw the employees just unnecessarily and insult them. Everyone needed to be an idiot. And I was like, you're not going to be good at this at all. Like this is one of the few true communities, with whether it was Black Twitter or gay Twitter or whatever. And he was just wrecking it piece by piece. And that's inexplicable. And then he hired, not a very smart executive in Linda Yaccarino, and not serious. Like, these are not serious people to save something that is going to have problems, but could be useful in some way if its owners just didn't have a desperate need to dunk on everybody, which that's really where he is. But that's out of weakness on his part, not strength.
Yeah, no, it's really depressing. And to me, the only good part about it is that it is encourage people to go find other platforms and consider alternatives.
Yeah. I think Blue Sky, it is a little lefty leaning, but that's okay. Like, everyone has their own bars or places they live, and we don't go crazy about that. I think it's, it is good to hear from other people, but is it good to hear from Nazis? I don't think so. I figured them out already. Like, I hear you. I got it. I learned my history. I know what you represent. I don't need to hear from you anymore. I think that's the biggest canard of all these idiot tech people. They're like, we need to hear many voices. I'm like, yeah, I got their message. I know what Kristi Noem's all about. I don't need to hear from her anymore. I'm pretty sure I get her. And so that's their thing, is that they're shoving people down our throats that we have no interest in whatsoever. And it doesn't make you more open-minded to listen to them. It just makes you exhausted by their rank hypocrisy and general idiocy.
To me, one of the things that's interesting is there's the difference between you can speak on this platform and the platform is optimized to amplify your message.
Right, exactly. And of course, why should we have to hear from Elon? Like, that to me, that was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're amplifying yourself. I guess if you're the owner, but just say it. Like, I love myself and I own it. And so everyone's going to have to listen to me. You never could do something like that. But that kind of stuff and sort of cutting off people. He's doing, the thing I say a lot lately is every accusation is a confession. Every time they accuse, they're doing exactly what they accused everybody else of. So, of course, that's no fresh new insight, but it's pretty clear that's what's happening here.
I want to move on to another topic, which I know that you care a lot about, which is the effect of social networks on people's psychology, on addiction, on minors. There's, Andrew Haidt has this book. Jonathan Haidt. There's proposals like Australia to ban minors from social media and things like that.
I think France passed one. I think France just passed one, right? France keeps people up. Yeah.
We want the platforms don't care.
No.
And so we need to do something, but at the same time, you know, it, especially for queer kids, like access to the internet, access to social media is really important. I came out in an AOL chat room.
Right. That's where I had a whole chapter on that in my book about the house the gay community in AOL is a really interesting story, along with Planet Out and stuff. Like, they were very open to that. You're absolutely right. Like, places to meet people online. Now, it's not like we don't have websites, by the way. There's still other ways, whether it's or WhatsApp or things like that. So there used to be just one way. Now there's dozens of ways. But to me, some of those cases are the only cases that matter. For the most part, it's deleterious to kids. It is. It just is. There's like study after study after study, and especially either young men who feel isolated and alone and tend towards porn, or women who lose self-esteem, or really young kids who get sucked up into the CSAM. It's a really difficult question, and it's the same thing with. It reminds me a little, because of the addictive qualities of liquor or cigarettes or things like that. And so there is no good solution to this. Maybe there's a dispensation that the parents can do or something, but it seems like for the overall health of our youth, we have to think about it the way we think of cigarettes and liquor. And I do get it. Younger kids, maybe 16 should be it. Maybe 16. I don't know. That seems to be a pretty good age where kids have a little bit more control of themselves. But some don't.
The problem, I worry, is that then by the point we do age verification, do we do it with video? Do we do it with government IDs?
Well, we do it all the time. Come on. That's like come on. We do it all the time, whether you're buying liquor, whether you're buying weed, whether you're buying... We do age. When you get on a plane, you do age verification. It's possible to do it, so they should do it. Like, it's not like this is a new fresh thing, and we do it We do it all. When you get into public school, you have to prove your age. Like, you really do. Like, and I think we're surrounded by that. And for somehow the internet can't do it. Like, I don't understand. That to me is a specious argument. I think the issue is, how do we protect people's privacy? But again, there really hasn't been privacy for a long time. Your identity is loaded up into every airline, everywhere you go, you have your identity is somewhere. And so I don't know. I don't think it would be as hard. I think the issue is, one, a lot of parents, for example, want their kids online as a babysitter, or not a lot, some. Some like to reach them incessantly at school. For example, school. I don't even know why we're arguing this anymore. It's so obvious. It's a distraction. You don't get to watch TV during school, except if you're in a shitty school, right? And so you shouldn't get to have your phone at school. What's the point? What? You have to reach your parents. You have to talk to your friends. Your friends are right over there. Like, I just don't. There's no reason to have a phone in a school that is more. The negatives are so high. The positives are almost nil. And so I know I sound like an old person, but it's like, you can't concentrate on socialization, other kids, and the subjects at hand if you have the ultimate...
If you have this immediate distraction device.
It's distraction machine. It is. And it never ends. And it never stops going. And then it also brings you down in a distraction where you cannot concentrate and read and talk and have I laugh when people are doing it. I'm like, every fucking study is like, socialization makes you happier with people. Like, the internet doesn't. Like, why are we even? It's like we're mainlining our kids drugs. Like, that's, to me, it doesn't seem like.
I mean, the internet can be socialization. I mean, that's the crazy part about it is.
For gay people, maybe, I suppose, because you can only find them. But now you can actually find gay people. Like, when I was 100 years ago, it was much more difficult. But yes, it feels like a socialization machine. It actually isn't. It feels like it. In the beginning of the internet, I met all these. It's the beginning of my book. I have these people from that were quilters, and they had met online. And it's hard to find other quilters in your area, or if you're in a rural area. And they all had met, and they made a quilt online together, and they mailed stuff back and forth. And then they presented it to Steve Case. And that's a lovely story. Like, that was kind of great. Or gay people meeting each other. And my ex-wife used to run Planet Out, and they had like 17 members from Vatican City, which I thought was kind of fun. I mean, I was surprised it wasn't more, but finding people like they're not edge cases particularly, but finding people, like-minded people like yourself is kind of interesting. Like, especially if you have an esoteric interest.
It feels magical.
Yes, it does. That I get. But once that happens, there's other ways to stay in touch, right? Do you need this thing? And I kind of like Reddit. Reddit was always to me a very perfect product until it got sort of invaded by, racists and neo-Nazis. But then they cleaned it up, and actually, it's a pretty damn good way to do that. That to me, like if Reddit can do it with half, like a quarter, an eighth of the money and the means and the people, I don't understand why Facebook can't do it. I do understand why Facebook could do it. They're not interested in doing it. You have to have a determination to make not a safe place. That's a bad word. A place that's a clean place that's actually fun to do stuff in. And I agree that I like the Reddits. I used to love the message boards. But again, like all things, they can get ugly, like Gamergate or whatever, pretty quickly.
There was for a while right before Blue Sky launched where it was actually active discussions about whether or not Blue Sky should be a joint venture between Twitter and Reddit and have it.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Twitter,
when it wasn't clear what Blue Sky would do exactly,
right.
Like exactly how the tech, is it more like Twitter? Could it be more like something else? And so there was a whole round of discussions that were going on behind the scenes saying, can we make this a joint venture? Can we make this sort of an alliance of the non-meta platforms?
Right. Reddit, I think, is a terrific product. And again, lots of problems, lots and lots of problems. But I really thought they really did a great job making that a much better place, like a much better, if you think of things in terms of stores, a better store, a better restaurant, a better whatever it happens to be. And then you really can find your people in there, right? And again, it reminded me a lot of the early internet, all the different, not just the chat rooms, but before that, there was all those other groups. What were they called? I don't even remember. There was an F in one. But
the Usenet groups?
Usenet groups. I used to like those. Yeah, they were interesting. And before that, there was even something more. I forget what it was.
FidoNet.
It was just a good way to communicate. And then, everyone who could game it got in there, or either marketers or really malevolent people, right? And then but those malevolent people and those marketers are all going to show up no matter what one you're in. And then you have other ones like those talking ones. What was that one that Mark Andreessen backed?
Clubhouse, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. I remember seeing it. I was like, okay, it's just a spoken version of this. And then it's interesting. Twitter was trying to do that with Twitter Spaces. I like Twitter Spaces a lot before Elon got a hold of it. But, those were interesting. But then it turned into a bunch of VCs yammering on about reporters. Like, who wants that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then they're like, reporters on here. How dare they? It's like, why would I come in here and get insulted by a bunch of assholes? Like, they just didn't want to make a space that was interesting in any way. And then that got inevitably overtaken by marketers and, other nefarious sellers of things that you don't want.
One of the prototypes that we did at the same hackathon where we made Twitter was an audio version. You would call into a phone number and record an audio message, and then you would get the audio messages of everybody you followed. Right. And it had a bit of that. I mean, the tech didn't.
It did. I love Twitter Spaces. I had a whole thing going on Twitter Spaces that was doing really well when nobody was paying attention to it. And I really liked it. And we had great meetings there. I had 6,000-7,000 people at every one of them. And we had gotten an advertiser to be a sponsor. We could have made some money on there. And actually, it's one of the things I wrote Elon about. I go, you got to see this. This is really, I said, it's super glitchy. The technology is bad, but it's really promising especially because they had a lot of controls of who you let to speak. So I always knew who was the crazy one.
They gave you the moderation controls.
They did.
That's what Reddit does.
Yes, exactly. And so I was really pleased because someone started to be nuts. At one point, Dave Portnoy lost his fucking mind. I went, click, goodbye. You know what I mean? Like he was yelling at someone. And I was like, I don't care who you are. You're being a jerk. And I put him off. So I like that. And then once Elon started making a mess of it, the advertisers disappeared. And I did too. I just don't want to be part of it. I'm not painting his fence,
Yeah. Looking forward, we now have an era which the spammers and the marketers and everyone else shilling things now is taking advantage of of large language models. They're taking AI and they can build bots and content creation stuff that sort of run circles around people. Like, does this undermine the advertising model? Does this destroy the model of this kind of
It could,
space?
unless if people are creating great spaces where they control that, there's no reason it can't be great, right? There's no reason it can't be good. It's just cheaper to do it bad and more lucrative, right? And so, sure, they're going to be smaller, like Blue Sky. They're just going to be smaller, right? But no, there's no reason why it can't be good. But there's every reason to think it'll get taken advantage of. I mean, again, haven't we seen this story before? Don't we see it? But look at something like television. I always think about television a lot, where there was a period when they started, it was kind of like sponsors and just shows, right? Like, variety shows essentially. And then it evolved into a really interesting medium. And then it went stupid for a little while. It was called the boob tube. You remember the boob tube.
Yep.
Now it's fantastic. And then streaming started out as is anyone going to make money? And now people are sort of working their way through it. So, people do work their way through creating things that people like. And so I was kind of thrilled when Elon lost his mind, because then innovation happened, right? Like, I don't want to be with this asshole. What else can we get? I don't like this party anymore. I want to leave this party. And therefore you start a new party. I think that's always a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, in 2018, when I founded my company, I tried to talk Jay Graber into joining me as a co-founder, and she went off and did her own thing. And we were building these decentralized social protocol apps that no one would use. And every time we're like, hey, we should do this thing, because you can control it and you can set your own rules and you can say what you want, and you get that sort of Reddit kind of self-governance. And everybody's like, well, no one will ever use it. And in many ways, Elon's taking over of Twitter and messing it up so poorly gave us a gift, because now people are interested and see the problem with the platforms.
Right. I think it's great. I mean, one of the things is that is lost among people that create those decentralized, it's hard to use. And they're like, oh, it's not so hard to use. I'm like, it is. Like, for the average person, the average person wants convenience over better. They do. Like that hello for everything. Like fast food is the story of that. Convenience is always wins. And convenience that's a little fun wins all the time. And so I think one of the things that a lot of the creators of these decentralized platforms, I couldn't figure it out. I was like, oh, what is this? I put here. So you're never going to be
which Mastodon server do I use?
Yeah,
and why do I see the conversations or not?
I literally, I'm going to go watch something on streaming. That's the difficulty, is if you can create, I think Blue Sky has done that really well. It's a nice product, but you could make a dozen of them, and it's okay if they splinter. It's okay if it's a smaller thing. Like, look at what media is doing right now. It's splintering, but there's a lot of really lucrative, including stuff I do, very lucrative, that's small, but it's not that small. It's not that big, but it's not CBS, but I think some of my sites are bigger than some of my podcasts are bigger than CBS broadcasts. Like, it's just, you find your audience. And I think that splintering is an okay thing. It's not a bad thing, actually, especially, we went from department stores to specialty stores, right? Because people wanted whatever. And that's the inevitable. Specialty is the inevitable way. And that's okay. That's how it started.
It's not just okay. It's great.
It's great, yeah.
That we don't have this monolithic centralized media ecosystem,
right,
but have thousands of different ways in which you make a living at it or find a community. But
again, Meta is around the globe. Including with WhatsApp and everything. They have so many. He's so clever in terms of all the way he insinuates himself. And so, that's troubling that one company touches all these people around the globe every day, right? And without any interest in anything except making money. And again, I like to make money. I make a lot of money. I do, but I make it. But I also would feel grotesque to do it at the expense of safety or political partisanship, or not care at all. I just don't. Look, everyone's going to reach the end and they're going to meet their maker or whatever. And I'd love to be front row of that meeting, kind of thing. And so Mark sort of leads the way, but it happens over, it happens in Twitter. It happens Evan does a better job, I guess, over there. And I understand, but it's smaller. Like, it's small. Reddit, I think they do a better job, but it's smaller. I think people will fracture and splinter over time. It makes that's how everything else does. So I see that happening, and I think that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Unless, of course, we become so dependent on an AI agentic system. That's the stupid word. Where they do everything for us. And that's really convenient. When you start to really delve into that world, it'll be super frigging convenient for everybody. And it would be very hard to resist if it's very convenient.
Well, that's the number of people who just end up asking ChatGPT or Claude what they should do in every situation.
That's right. They do. But I have to say, at first I was laughing at the Google answers, but now I'm like, oh, that was the correct answer. Like, it was actually easy. I was like, someone for some reason couldn't get something on my Google Scat. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, just look it up. And I hadn't used Google in a while. And I just said how to put something on a Google Scat in Google. And it just came up and it was right there rather than me having to delve down. I was like, oh, that was a lot easier. Like, it's getting better. It's their AI answers are getting better. They will get inevitably better the way the internet got better. If you were around before, you remember when the big exciting site was that university coffee pot. Do you remember that one? That was a great.
Yeah, it was at MIT. I've actually seen the coffee pot. I spent
at the coffee
some time at the Media Lab, and you can it's still there. You can still see the coffee pot.
I know, but it's like that was the thing. There wasn't much to do, right? And then there was.
With that AI thing, with Google giving us the answers, with it giving us a better experience by giving the summary, you're not driving traffic to websites.
No, they never cared. This was what they were waiting for, right? And I think that's, they don't. And now that there's so many answers out there, they're not going to. I kept telling publishers, I'm like, they're going to get rid of you at some point unless they need to use you. And that's why there's these lawsuits and everything else, because we figured it out by this time. But it doesn't really matter, because if they don't get the answer from you, they'll get it from somewhere else. And eventually, like, everyone's like, oh, hallucinations. I'm like, they'll fix those. And they're like, oh, wrong answer. I'm like, they'll fix that. It'll get fixed. It'll get, like, if anyone experienced the early internet knows, it'll get fixed, right? Because if you recall, like, Yahoo, I did a piece on Yahoo when they started, and it was a bunch of guys in a dark room hand putting stuff. It was yet another officious oracle, whatever, yet another hierarchical officious oracle. That was what Yahoo stands for. And it was people putting stuff it was
just all manually created.
It was a directory. Yes, it was. They would do that. They go, oh, okay. And they would spend a lot of time making sure they don't put pedophile stuff on, right? And so they'd check it. But that was at a time when there was, 3,000 sites. And then the next year it was 60,000. Next year it was 6 million. And so it was impossible not to do it in an automated fashion, but it was people just doing that. But that's not possible anymore.
I really appreciate your time.
No problem.
And your insight and all of your work over the years.
Thank you.
I have loved listening to your podcasts and reading your articles when you were writing more articles. I enjoyed your book, the Burn Book, a lot. I recommend people read it to understand the history of Silicon Valley and how we got here and what the behavior of people that led it.
I like that you liked them initially. Jack was never a good person. I know.
I like him. I consider him a friend. But
I understand, but lately, come on, he's got to stop. He's damaging his reputation, right? Like all this conspiracy crap that he's pulling. Like, stop it. Stop. Move on. He was nicer than everybody else. I will give him that. But I preferred like Dell and in his own weird, strange little way, Evan. You know what I mean? Like, it just was. He didn't have to. Jack felt the need to impose all his theories on people, and that always clocks me as narcissistic, and so I didn't like that. I was like, okay, if you want to meditate, but don't make the whole fucking company meditate. Like, what? Like, I'm all for meditation, but I was like, it was so narcissistic, and I understand why you'd like it, but I mean,
there's a very weird way in which these companies end up reflecting the values.
Exactly, the DNA
and the all the dysfunction of the founders as well.
Correct. The DNA of the founders is in every company. You can clock it back to the founders, and I've always said that the DNA, you cannot fight genetics of whatever company it happens to be. And you know, and if you were there in the early days of Twitter, it was fun. And listen, the reason why is because you weren't Facebook, right? So that was always a good comparison. You weren't those assholes, and in that way, they were better. You know, and it was more fun, and it was sort of piratey, and in the way Apple to Microsoft, right? That's what it felt like at the time.
Yeah, we were up in San Francisco, and they moved down in the valley,
and they had those different weird campuses. They shifted from one to the next, and they only got bigger and bigger. And every now and then, they'd act like they were cool by hiring a graffiti artist to do something on a wall, kind of thing. But it was also performative, and Twitter was very genuine in those days. It really was. But very quickly, especially the fights among all your VCs, was exhausting. You weren't probably not privy to that. I was, but it was. They were very quickly all about making money, and honestly, they didn't innovate enough. Twitter could have really been a contender if they had spent less time arguing each other interpersonally and more time. That's one thing that Mark wins on, is he has a laser focus and just himself. And at Twitter, they had, you know, all the founders. It was like a telenovela over there a lot of the time. And it was exhausting. Like, oh, this person's in. At one point, one of the wives of one of them was telling me all the problems. I'm like, literally, I'm a reporter from the Wall Street Journal. You need to shut up. You need to go get therapy all together and not tell me everything. Although, please tell me everything. But it was, you know, it was really kind of a very highly emotional place, as I recall. And needlessly so. Needlessly so. It didn't make the product better. It didn't make
and in fact, I think it stopped the innovation on the product.
Right.
I mean, people spent so much time like frustrated with each other and going back and forth.
It was an emotional group of people. Yeah. At one point, I think I was with, maybe Jack wasn't there. I mean, it was Evan and Biz. And I said, this is worse than a lesbian collective. Like, I can't. Like, I don't like I'm a lesbian. I hate a lesbian collective. And you people just stop with your ridiculous emotional catharsis. It's like, just make your product better. And then of course there was the shutdowns, all the fail whales, which was funny. That was funny. I like that because I used to get to write a fail whale story every 3 days, essentially.
Who else should I be talking to?
God, I'd have to remember everybody. Like, God, people went in and out of those places. I'm trying to think, early Facebook people were interesting and then gone. I mean, I do think Chris Cox is thoughtful, whatever you think of him. I mean, he is. He's a little bit of an open wound, but I do think he's thoughtful. I never thought he wasn't. But he's always like, oh, I feel so bad. I'm like, then do something about it. Stop complaining about feeling bad. He used to say that. He's like, I feel so bad. People get hurt. I'm like, oh, really?
So,
if only someone was in a position. I was like, if only someone was in a position. Who here, and there's two of them can do something about it. I was trying to think. I think Chris is really. I did think he was thoughtful. Like
right after Trump was elected in 2016, I sat down with Bradley Horowitz and some other folks, and we were talking about what could be done. And he was concerned about it. He's concerned about the political situation and everything else. And I was like, well, you know, can you provide funds to these different groups who are using technology for Indivisible and other things like that? And he's like, oh no, I can't really do that or anything else. And then he was like, where should I go if I have to run away? It becomes authoritarian nightmare. And I'm like,
Bradley.
Like, you know, New Zealand or Iceland or other places. And I'm like, well,
there's no getting out of the earth.
There's no getting out. Like use your resources, use your power. You're an important Google executive.
The Google Plus people would be interesting. What's his name? Bradley worked for him. He's kind of a pompous ass, but I liked him anyway. But at the time when they made it, it was so those circles was so inexplicable. And I kept going, I don't understand this. This is so hard to use. And then I realized Google were the least sociable people. How could they build a social network, right? Like that was like they couldn't. They weren't on social media, and then they built a social network. And it was so incomprehensible. The other people you might find are the ping people, like who did it for Apple. That, you know, I remember having a discussion with Steve Jobs about when they introduced it, and he came out and said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think it sucks." And he's like, it does suck. Like, it wasn't their business. It wasn't their business.
Their DNA was wrong. You know,
no, they were trying to jam music in there, but it just, you know, it just was like.
Ev, Biz, and Goldman were all ex-Googlers. Like, they all worked on Blogger at Google, and they hated it. I mean, the entire reason that Odeo exists is because.
That's right. No, I know. It's in my book. That's actually in my book. Yes, they did. That was, I broke that story when they left Google to start Odeo. But it was, they were, but I'd find the ping people. What happened to them? Like, I don't know. Anyway, and then there was, what's his name? The one that Google did that was popular in Argentina or wherever. Or
Orchid.
Orchid, that guy.
Yeah.
One time I was in there and he's right when they were doing okay in, like, I think it was Brazil or Argentina, whichever
Brazil
one.
and India
Brazil.
were where they really took off.
Yeah, but Brazil really, not India as much. And they, and we were in a room and they're like, we're number 1 in Brazil. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You're number 0 in the United States, like, which is all that matters, right? Or Japan or whatever. You know, you might find
Big
Jerry,
in Japan, yeah.
Yeah, Jerry Yang was thinking about turning Yahoo into that. That would be interesting. You know, they missed that turn. But Orchid was funny. He was like, we're number 1 in Brazil. I was like, nobody is like being the most popular person in Pittsburgh. It really doesn't matter. Anyway.
Except that WhatsApp never has really taken off in America and is an important app.
It is. No, that one did, but it's worldwide. Like, it was just fucking Brazil. That was it. And I was like, no, not the winningest move for Google, which was the most important company. I'm like, you can't possibly be popular in Brazil and Argentina, maybe? Like, they couldn't get out of Brazil. So anyway, all right, I have to go, unfortunately.
Thank
Eric,
you so much.
I got to go.
Really
all right,
your time.
no problem. Good luck. Let me know when it appears and I'll flag it for you.
Thanks again to Kara Swisher for coming on revolution.social. Our intro and outro music is a remix of the Italian anti-fascist song Bella Ciao, courtesy of White Records.
This episode was edited and produced by Eric Johnson from lightningpod.fm. Our executive producer is me, Alice Chan, from Flock Marketing.
And to learn more about the Social Media Bill of Rights, sign up for our email newsletter at revolution.social.
For more interviews like this one, follow revolution.social on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, nostasfountain.fm, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And to paraphrase Subcomandante Marcos of the Zapatistas, we need a social media revolution to make revolution possible. We'll be back next week. See you then.